So we have close to a dozen program managers here. It's a really critical role for us in healthcare, and I think that what makes the best program managers is a few things. One, having really good organizational skills and being able to multitask and being able to have lots of balls in the air, because even with one project, there are usually multiple mini projects that are going on to make that program come together. And so you have to be highly, highly organized. I think attention to detail is really important. The way that we work a lot is our program managers will have meetings with work groups that are made up of folks from around the health system, clinicians, administrators, and others who give input into the program or project. And then it's really that program manager taking all of that feedback and being really careful about all the details so that nothing is lost in their role in moving that program forward. And so the attention to detail may be in taking good meeting minutes, and so understanding what are the action items that came out of that meeting, who's responsible for doing them, and by what time. And so then the program manager can follow up to say, oh, Dr. So-and-so, at our last meeting, you were tasked with doing X. You said you would do that by this date. I'm just checking in to see if that's done, and then closing that loop with the next meeting to say, here are the action items. Here's what happened. But if you don't have the attention to detail, those things can fall through the cracks sometimes and really prevent the program from moving forward as it should. Communication is the third really critical skill for program managers. I say to people, when you are so sick of communicating the same thing over and over and you feel like you're saying it until you're blue in the face, you're probably just starting to communicate whatever your message is enough, because the way people hear things, people are so busy. It's a very fast-paced environment in healthcare. And so you have to be a really strong communicator, and that's written communication, it's oral communication, it's communication on things like role clarity, how you measure success in a program, which is really very important, and then communicating to make sure that your stakeholders and leaders understand what the goals of your program are, where you are in meeting those goals, what your goalposts are along the way toward those goals, so that there isn't any confusion and no surprises. One of the things that my first boss here said to me was, you never want to surprise your boss, ever. And so that just speaks to the need for excellent communication skills, but at all levels. I mean, you want excellent communication skills with the people who are working with you, the people who are part of your team, but you may not sit next to. I mean, we work with people from all over our health system, which is many counties away, and that can be a challenge to communication because a lot of it's through email. Some of it's through video technology. We're using that a lot more. Some of it's through telephone. And then it's becoming less frequent that we're actually sitting with people in a room. And that's challenging because you can't read body language. You can't infer tone on email. And so I would say those three things, so organizational skills, the attention to detail, and communication would be my probably top three.
There are really three. You have to be able to do a budget and do math and monitor expenses and understand pluses and minuses. I don't know. You can come out of graduate school with a great understanding of epidemiology, but if you can't create a budget and manage it, you're useless to me as a program manager. So if you want to be a technician, that's fine. Okay. But if you want to be a program manager, you have to understand and be able to manage budgets. The second is writing. We require 3 writing samples from every applicant for every job. I have personally let more people go for being unable to write adequately than I have for any other reason. And we'll work with people, and this was primarily because I inherited a bunch of folks when I became division director, but writing clearly is essential. And if you are in the habit of writing in an academic manner, that doesn't translate well to implementation. And if you're in the habit of writing short and sweet and bullets, but you need to present a 20-page report, that's not going to translate well. It is essential that we have people who understand grammar and English language and how to say things clearly without going to either extreme, and to always have the audience in mind. So how I write for a grant is going to be different than how I write for a memo to a funder, for example. And that combination of audience awareness and just generic writing skills is huge. I mean, I'm never going to win a Pulitzer. I am not, an author in that way. But not being able to write clearly becomes the source of more problems than you even want to think about. So sometimes we'll send people to a technical writing class. Sometimes we'll just coach them individually. Other times we just won't even interview them. Yeah. They have to be able to write coherently. They just do. So that's another piece. And then the third is the interpersonal skills. And I can't tell you the people who come in and they interview and they talk about what great listeners they are, and they spend the entire interview talking and don't shut up. They don't get invited back. Yeah. The ability to establish rapport and say hello and help the other person be comfortable talking with you, regardless of the topic, is key. And it's really difficult. It's not something that comes naturally to all of us. And in many instances, the smarter we are, the harder it is. It just is a huge skill. And sometimes you do things that are basic, like you listen to some talk show host who has a book about how to talk to anybody about anything kind of stuff, or you do other things. And for some folks, it's just totally natural. But the ability to establish rapport and have a conversation is essential.
Again, just sort of from my own recent experience, it's about keeping a lot of different balls in the air and finding out the best way for your own self to do that. I am, even in this electronic world, still a paper and pencil person when it comes to making lists. And I've noticed just in my own self that the task of writing something out gives me enough quiet time. It's more about reflection and gaining some equilibrium in my own mind than it is about the writing. But I think the act of writing has that effect on me. So I still write down lists and do check boxes and I go back and page through and see that I've gotten everything done. Beyond that, I'm just using all the tools that are available to me. Excel, spreadsheets and Word documents and everything, all the tools that we all have available to us in our daily work.
Yeah. Flexibility is huge. You can plan things out, you can have your timelines, and then life happens. Computer breaks, somebody's got out on leave that you weren't expecting, you get sick, there's all kinds of things. And so you just have to roll with it. And again, getting back to the integrity and being genuine, that plays for any audience that you need to work with. Oftentimes in a project, you may have staff that are accountable to you, or you may be working with people who you have absolutely no responsibility for, but you need a big piece of work from them. And so how do you get that buy-in and keep moving along? And so that leadership, integrity, communication is huge. Letting people know, and even to the extent of setting up, we're going to hold ourselves accountable. And if you say you're going to work on a deadline and you don't, having that difficult conversation to say, the team's counting on you, and we've got this deadline, and just really bringing, I would say, as a program manager, I have used every skill that I have ever come across, from way back as an administrative assistant, things that I learned like as a Girl Scout leader, it's all about how do we meet these goals, how do we move it forward in the smoothest possible way.
Yeah.
So
I think in part it's time management and organization of projects. Also being able to think about the tasks that need to get done and break those tasks into smaller pieces and develop a timeline of when you think you need to get that done and be able to get it. I also be realistic. Good communication skills as well, so that if things are behind schedule, being able to communicate that and the reasons why, and then if you come up with a new deadline, meeting that new deadline, and again, being realistic with that. Also being willing to have conversations with employees about projects and where they are, making sure that they feel that they can come to you if things are falling behind, or coming to you with challenges that they're having, or things like that, so that you can work, so that they feel it's a collaborative relationship, that you're working together to get something done. And as a program manager, also being able to have those conversations with those higher up than yourself, to keep them apprised with where things are, and again, being realistic with what's getting done and what the tasks are to do.